Hello, and welcome to Changemakers, a new podcast from Civil Service World. I'm Suzannah Brecknell, Editor-in-Chief of Civil Service World, and in this series, I'll be meeting people who are making change happen across the public sector. We always love to showcase new and interesting things here at CSW. Our aim with this series is not just to talk about what people are doing, but to explore the how and really get under the skin of innovation. Everything from generating and improving ideas through building evidence bases, business cases, evaluating projects, and learning from failure as well as success. In this episode, we're really starting with the foundations. We're meeting someone who has been thinking about the conditions you need to drive innovation and working with others to create those conditions in her department. I'm joined today by Claire Donaldson, Innovation Hub co-founder and lead at the Department for Science, Innovation and Technology, which gives us a clue about what we're going to be talking about today. Claire, tell us a bit about yourself. How long have you been a civil servant? What kind of roles have you done? And what makes you excited about working in government?
Thanks, Suzannah. I get very excited about all of it. So I was saying before we started, rein me in, because I could go on forever and we've only got a little bit of time. So yes, my background, I'm passionate about storytelling and getting other people to tell stories and getting to know people, communities, organisations by enabling that storytelling and getting diverse voices to come forward and share and learn together. So I love working in that way. I've been a civil servant now for nearly 9 years, I think. I haven't really thought about that until you asked me, but yeah, wow, I think it's about 9 years. And a lot of that has actually been part-time. And it's been an amazing opportunity for me to kind of balance my ways of working and where I work. And that's worked really well for me. So I work a lot with communities, working with charities, and then I balance that with my policy work. And so I've got that kind of awareness of what's going on in the real world, which really helps me build sort of sustainable, ethical policy. So that's where I've been working, that nice balance. I came into government probably at another key moment of transformation when gov.uk was very new. And I think it feels like we're at another key moment of transformation now. So looking to that moment and what worked well and learning from that is a big thing that I'm enabling through the Innovation Hub as well. So getting in people that were there then to tell us what worked well and what didn't, and then looking to the future with new and old faces as well.
Lovely. There's so many interesting points there that I'm sure we can pick up on in our conversation. But you mentioned the Innovation Hub, which is you've described to me as a tool to embed an innovative culture and support new ways of working. So we'll think about that over our conversation. But before we get there, the project stems from thinking about what is needed, as I said, to make innovation happen in the public sector. And as we were preparing for today, you sent me some info which included this definition of innovation taken from a Civil Service Innovation Masterclass as doing something new or different which creates value for our people, our partners, or the public. Now, that sounds quite simple on paper. But obviously, if innovation was that easy, we wouldn't be here today to talk about it. And you wouldn't have had to start a hub to support it. So why do you think that innovation is not easy?
I suppose innovation is difficult in any sector and any organisation because obviously you're at the frontier. So you can't really direct or explain. You can just give vision and passion and support and money and resources. And I think where we struggle in particular in government is that you have another level of responsibility. So as do all organisations, but we are using taxpayers' money and we are building services that are transformational for people. So there's a hell of a lot of responsibility there and a lot of risk aversion in the civil service, and quite rightly so. So any risk, any change needs to be done with incredible wisdom and analysis and thought. I think for that reason, it's incredibly difficult. And we want to get this right. And the only way we're going to do that, I think we have these operating models and hierarchies that are making it even more difficult in the civil service. So I think for me, one of the things I'm passionate about is thinking about skills, not grades. So I think if we're going to get innovation, the only way we can move forward is thinking about the whole operating model and where those blocks are and how we can transform the whole operating model. So not easy and not quick. But I guess with the Innovation Hub, we were putting a flag in the sand to say, we're over here. Does anyone want to join us and do some experimentation in a safe way, in an ethical way, and with the values of our department and aligning with our long-term strategic ambitions, but learning together to work in a different way, creating pilots that we then, we test and learn new ways of working. We showcase what worked well. All of our failures we're open about, as well as our successes. So I think it's just it's a brave new way of working. And I think multidisciplinary teams thinking about skills rather than grades and working in the open, being a community. I know for me, it's really scary, it's really hard, but it's also incredibly exciting. And when you work in this way, in the open with community and with multidisciplinary teams, rather than starting a draft of whatever it might be, all on your own in a dark corner, when you invite other people in from the very beginning and have that team around you with diverse skills and backgrounds and thoughts, it becomes more efficient. So it may be a new, scary way of working, but if we can show how exciting it is, how efficient it is, and focus on the outcomes that it brings for me, for my team, and for the department, and for the people that we serve, the better it will be. So we have to be brave. And I think comms is really key. So that working in the open element and sharing your learning so that we can bring people with us, and other people will be like, I see what you mean. So yeah, being brave, I suppose, is the thing we really need to be.
You're making a case really for the conversation we're having here about how you make change so that people can relate to the fact that it's scary and they can have some understanding about how someone has got something new off the ground. So yes. With that in mind, let's go back to the beginning. I'm quite keen in our new series to start always with the kind of what was the beginning point for your idea? What was the problem you were facing, or what was the trigger? So how did the idea of creating a kind of tool or a hub to support new ways of working come about for you?
Well, one of the things we were really lucky with was we were given the opportunity. So the Department for Science, Innovation and Technology is a baby department. It's very new, and we've gone through change upon change with 2 machinery of government changes in our young life. But our permanent secretary, Sarah Mumby, gave us the opportunity to say, what do you want this department to look like and feel like? And she ran an ideas lab competition. And I put forward hundreds of ideas, and I was like, come on, everyone, this is, a great opportunity. Share your thoughts, share your ideas on how you think this department could be the best that it could be. And so, I suppose it was having the opportunity is so important. So for departments, organisations, to give the opportunity to open up the door to people and give people a voice. And it works. So we're a great example, just one of many wonderful, interesting ideas that were put forward. And we worked really hard on the idea to come up with an initial framework. There were 3 of us that worked on it together. I always, as I live what I say works for me, which is working collaboratively and in the open. And I was like, I've got an idea. Does anyone, even at that beginning, I wanted to draw in different perspectives, and we all worked together. We all brought our own passion and individual ideas. And then we worked up an original sort of framework for the Innovation Hub. And then we got through to the final. We had to face vigorous questioning from a really fascinating panel, including Carl Hood, Sarah Mumby, other external leaders in innovation as well, before we even gave them details of our Innovation Hub idea. We wanted to get them to think outside the box. So it was October when the idea was happening. So I gave all of them a little pumpkin, an idea of innovation, a case study that had inspired me, which was an organic chocolate making company that now worked with people with neurodiverse skills who had done the artwork, and they'd set up a charity, like a community enterprise. And so I was handing them things and getting them to think differently and creatively from the get-go. And then instead of us saying what we thought could be better about the department, we created an avatar to say the tricky stuff.
So that's a good idea.
So we were a little bit brave,
yeah,
but in a bit of a scared way. Because of course, when you're facing that sort of panel, you don't want to say this. This is how we think we can improve. So we created a little funky avatar called Ada, based on Ada Lovelace.
Nice.
And used her to tell the story of Ada's just joined the department. Here are some barriers. Here are some ideas that she thinks could make this department more innovative and more open to change. And we won them round in that way. So you've got to be creative when you're coming up with innovation. Again, I didn't want to put a business plan or a piece of paper in front of them. Had to do that as well. But I wanted to hit them in a different way as well and really create excitement and different ways of working
really
from the very beginning. Yeah.
And how did you then, obviously you got approval to go ahead with the idea.
Yes.
And how did you kind of refine from there, decide, okay, well, we had our idea, but what are the key elements of this hub going to be going forward?
So we came up with the framework ourselves, the three of us, Flora and Freya and I. And then I'd worked previously with Policy Lab and other people that have great experience in open and participatory ways of working.
And this is Policy Lab in Cabinet Office?
Yes, it is. So a big shout out to them. And so I immediately asked them if they could work with us. So that was the first bit of funding that we had to secure. So I worked with the innovation team in the department to come up with a submission and put forward a business case to get some initial funding so that we could work with Policy Lab. And we wanted to give an opportunity to everyone across the department to create kind of flesh on the bones of the framework that we'd come up with. So we created a minimal viable product. We said which areas we thought were best to focus on, which was upskilling, so creating an academy to give people the confidence and the skills to work in a slightly different way, and then creating a community, a more traditional network, I suppose, with a speaker series, building up, getting people in to teach us and then recording that. So we're constantly doing that and learning and recording those resources as we grow. And then also an ideas lab incubator kind of way. So having regular meetings where people could bring their own ideas or problems. And again, rather than any of us having to work on our own, we became a community where if someone had a nitty-gritty beginning to a policy or a problem or a process, we were the people that they could work with to take that initial step towards working in the open, working collaboratively and creatively. So we put that to all staff through an open participatory workshop. We did one workshop which was a little bit more prescriptive because we wanted to get as many diverse voices from across sectors, from across locations, experiences, backgrounds. So we did a form and checked, and tried to be a little bit prescriptive with the first workshop. And then we did 2 follow-up ones, which we led with Policy Lab watching us because they were like, go forth. And we're like, I don't know if we can work this way without you. But now we're doing it. Yeah. But they sat and, guided us. And that was amazing. And so that second session and the following ones have been totally open to all staff. And then we've created over 100 key active members of the network now that work in this way with us.
So you mentioned Policy Lab. How important, you've spoken about it at the beginning there as well, but how important is it for you to work with partners?
Incredibly important. So I'm constantly learning, constantly upskilling with anyone that will come and work with us. Every person that I meet, let alone every partner that we work with, I learn something. There are those light bulb moments. We try and work with as many diverse partners as possible. I am constantly going to events and widening our network. I'm going to a Demos event next week, again, participatory, getting the citizen's voice. How do we, we're working pretty well internally now to encourage people to be open, to share, to work in a collaborative way. But we also want to start bringing in and creating constructive relationships with the people that we serve, particularly young people, civil society. So the voices that we might struggle to hear from because they don't have the time, the money, the resources to spend days on a government consultation. So that's something we're looking at as well, is how can we learn from that lived experience and give the voices, hear from the voices we need to hear from across society as well. How can we bring them in to policy making, service design, etc. And it's happening brilliantly in pockets. And that's why we're bringing in partners who are doing it really well. And then we can learn from them and spread the word as well.
And that really speaks as well to that second part of the innovation definition, that it has an impact for partners of the public or our colleagues. The hub launched in May 2024, so it is 1 year old this month. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Can you give us an overview of what it's been doing since then, just kind of top level, and what are some of the tangible things that people in DSIT might mention if I ask them, tell me about the hub?
So I suppose a lot of our time was running around saying to people, we're here, come and get involved. As I was saying, we've got a nice sort of core group of around 100 people now that have joined us. We have now grown from the next machinery of government change. So we have I.AI and GDS and CDDO and other parts of government that have come in who have much more delivery experience. So I'm busy telling them about us and running around with my presentation slides and my passion and saying, oh my gosh, we love what you're doing. How can we support it? So there's a lot of focus, obviously, on AI at the moment and different tools, not just AI, but how we can improve efficiency across government. And so what we're doing a lot of at the moment is learning from them and supporting their pilots and their test and learns. So we've put in place this community of people who are keen to do things differently. So now that we're leveraging technology, we're in a really good place that we have this community. They've gone through upskilling through the academy that we delivered with HR leading. And now we'll be in a good place to work with new technologies. We'll have that confidence, hopefully. So I suppose the hub is trying to get the foundations in place. So we're all trying to build up our skills, our confidence, so that we're able to grasp this next opportunity. We're doing well with the network. We've got lovely speakers who know about us now and are actually asking us to come and speak for them, not just me banging on doors. And the same with cross-government partners as well as external partners. So really growing our network so that we can keep learning and growing and sharing together. And then we're also doing some pilots. We've just done the first one last month, so big shout out to Dom for running the first one. So everything is done with volunteers, incredible people. And that was looking at what do you need? So asking the question, what do you need to best use technology? So if we're going to be moving at pace, what can we do to support people across the department to use technology in the most ethical, efficient way? We're always thinking about ethics, values, and the experience of the people across the department. So we want this to be fun as well. So working in this way is such a joy. And some of the people that I've got to hear speak or work with have been some of the brightest minds in innovation. So we want, I want more and more people to have that fun. And, I'm such a sponge. So I'm constantly learning and I want to help other people to be able to do that, because change is just, I suppose it's always been intense, but I certainly feel like I'm having to be learning every day. Things are changing at such pace. So I suppose it's giving people those soft skills as well to feel confident to grasp the opportunity.
Feel confident that when change comes, it's not too scary because you've done some thinking and some learning to get you prepared. Yeah. So you've mentioned some of the things there that have been successful over the last year, but is there anything else you would sort of want to mention that you're particularly pleased about when you look back at the process of launching the hub and its first year?
Yeah, I suppose one good example is the unconference. So that was an idea that bubbled up from one of our network members, Graham, who's incredible. And so we have run our first unconference for the department. Graham ran it with a group of volunteers from across the department, including the network. So I suppose it's that thing that we have created and upskilled a group of people who are now putting their hands up and saying, I've had this idea. Does anyone want to work with me? So it's not me and Flora and Freya coming up with the idea anymore and supporting that. They're bubbling up everywhere. And then we've got this group of people who can, use their skills and their confidence to make things happen, to make change happen. So yeah, it's really lovely to see that ideas are bubbling up.
And what has not gone so well? What have you failed at?
Oh, so many. I'm always sharing failures because I think that's where the real learning happens. And we're doing a lot of sort of workshops with other government departments, as I was saying, that are at different levels of maturity. And it's really good to be able to say, oh, if only we hadn't done this and if only we'd done that. So I think for me, one real key learning is that not all senior leaders have all the confidence and all the answers and all the skills. So I think it goes back to that thing we were talking about before, the risks, the unknown. We've got a lot more to do on upskilling our leaders and getting leaders into government who have experience of working this way, and then role modelling, giving the time, giving the space, because, a lot of people, they're so busy with the business as usual that innovation is still seen as a kind of nice to have. So we need to change that mindset. That comes back to the operating model, comes back to ways of working. And I think that's been really hard, is finding the time and the space and finding leaders who will, bravely allow us to focus on working in a slightly different way, or give us protected space to do that. So yeah, everything, we have no dedicated resource or money, everything's volunteers, and it still feels like a fight to find the space to do that.
Yeah, and as you said at the beginning, some of those big changes are not easy, and they're not something that, no matter how passionate and full of fight you as a team are, you can't change the whole operating model of the government on your own. So you need those senior, confidence and buy-in and support to make the full change you want to make.
And I think the cross-government campaigns are really helping. So it felt very much at the beginning that we were kind of sitting with an amazing group of volunteers with our flag, running around trying to find other people that were doing similar things across government, but with one big thing, innovation, that shone a light on all the people that are doing similar things. So now there's a cross-government working group that's been set up following one big thing, innovation. And then obviously we've got our next one big thing that's going to be around AI coming up. So we're in a really good position. And I think that feeling like, you're running around trying to find things and people and fighting for change, the ripple that we created through these, government campaigns is becoming a stronger force for change. So it's going in the right direction, which is really exciting.
We'll think about what's next in a moment, but I just want to ask, because one of the themes as well about this series is around evaluating what's happening. And how do you tell if the department is becoming more innovative? How are you evaluating your progress?
I think, again, that's a huge challenge. We're always working with user researchers and trying to work with analysts, but that's been a challenge in itself. We have regular pulse surveys. We have the people survey. So I'm constantly, any data that I can get my hands on, I'm constantly looking at it. And then for the Innovation Hub and Network in particular, we do regular feedback workshops. So hybrid now. So using different tools to really encourage people to say honestly, what is working well? What do you want more of? What do you want less of? And what new thing that you've seen from your engagement with partners inside and outside of government what's your idea that we should bring in? And we're doing some pilots on those at the moment as well, testing some new stuff that people have said, oh, could we try this? So we want to do deeper dives into technology, again, to build up our expertise. So getting people in who are really confident working with all different tools that we've got in our civil service toolbox, and giving people the time and space to play with them in a safe way and get their skills and their confidence up. So we're doing a whole lineup with different tools, and people will be able to play and learn together and ask those silly questions. So it's just giving that space. I think also definitely for me, the hybrid world is proving a challenge as well. So that's something we're also looking at, is how can we be creative and collaborative and inclusive in the hybrid world? And we've got a lot to learn there as well, because I every week I would drag people into a room and get post-it notes up on a wall, what's working well, what isn't, have morning stand-ups. So we're testing and learning new ways of bringing people together and getting that feedback. So no question is silly, no bit of feedback is silly, and trying to test different ways of bringing that out from people and building that confidence in us all to share openly and learn together. So I did a workshop at our 6-month point and invited everyone to say, what's working well, what isn't, what do you want more of, what do you want less of, what do you feel are still the barriers? And then we agreed as a community where our area of focus should be. And then we shared that with the whole department. So constant feedback loops.
What's next for the Innovation Hub? You've obviously spoken about some of the pilots you're doing, some of the focus you're going to be looking at. Is there anything else you would mention that you hope to see in the next 6 months or year?
Obviously, one big thing, innovation's been incredibly helpful. So there's now this cross-government innovation leaders group. So a few of us are going to be on that. So that will really help with us sharing our learnings and pushing for different ways of working. So I'm really excited to be a part of that. And then, we've got our pilots coming up, which are dialogue sessions, so protected time for people to come along with their problems and their ideas and their blockers, and get people, taking that idea forward and coming up with solutions for, delivery. And then our continued speaker series. And then the other thing for me, getting that lived experience into our policy making and into our services. So for me in particular, an area that I'm very passionate about is the expert exchange or secondment programme. Obviously, I don't run that. It's run by a fabulous team. But trying to think about those sorts of programmes that allow that exchange of knowledge and ways of building up constructive relationships with the people that we serve. So that's going to be my next area of passion, and particularly young people, because I think if we are looking at technology, we're missing a trick if we're not talking to young people. So whenever I do workshops with young people, everything I think of, they trumpet. I have so many light bulb moments. So I think that's certainly an area that we need to look at, is bringing in young people, bringing in people from civil society with that lived knowledge, and also looking at channels, whether it's the expert exchange, the comments, work experience, different ways of bringing in that lived experience knowledge. And, it should just be all of us are doing that. So I'm lucky because I work part-time, so I do it when I'm not working, but it shouldn't be like that. It should be two-way knowledge sharing. So thinking about how we can enable that is something I'm really interested in.
I look forward in due course to having you back for an episode about how you've created that mechanism.
Oh, I hope so.
But before that, one top tip, as a last question, one top tip for anyone with an idea for change in the civil service.
I suppose just be brave. So grasp the opportunity. And some of the people that I've met, obviously, I just took an opportunity, which was the Ideas Lab, and presented it in a creative, slightly strange way, probably very scary way. But try and live what you're saying you want the civil service to be. So try and get experience of what's going on in the real world and infuse that into your policy making or your service design. So think about ways that you can do that. I'm always trying to do that. I think talk to as many and hear from as many diverse voices as possible, because I think it's only through diverse experience, diverse thought, that we will create change and innovation. If we're all sitting around the table agreeing with each other, it's never going to happen. So think about widening your network. And the other thing that I think is really key is communication. So when I've worked outside of government, communication is that regular drumbeat of what's going on, what are you working on, what are you thinking right now, what are your hopes and dreams. Whereas we're still very much with our communication, unless it's got a minister announcing something new, it's really hard to say anything to anyone. So that's something I'm really passionate about, is work in the open, really get a steady drumbeat of what you're thinking, what you're feeling, what you're working on, get partners in to advise you, write with them. And I think it's ways of building trust and understanding. And that's always been important for government. But I think building trust right now, because of the pace of change and all this talk about AI, we need to do something to create that trust even more right now. So comms is key. Keep telling the stories, work in the open, be collaborative, be creative, break down those barriers.
Thank you, Claire, so much for sharing your story and for your time today.
Thank you so much, Suzannah. It's been really good fun.
And thank you to all of you for listening to Changemakers. Do subscribe to the Civil Service World podcast so you'll get the next episode right into your feed, along with a range of other informed and informative podcasts from the CSW team.